Good evening and welcome back to our weekly question and answer series for nash.org. Question. During a discussion, someone mentioned that one may not attach a hood or to a jacket nor zipper in a lining of a coat on Shabbos. Buttons and zippers are mutar on Shabbos. So what is the prohibition? We know there's a lot of connections, chiburim, in a clothing which is not considered tfir. It's not considered sewing together. Like you just mentioned, a zipper is not considered sewing. Buttons is not considered sewing together because the actual zipper or buttons shows that it is a thing which is made to open and close. So when a person sees a thing which is zippered together, he doesn't see it as it was sewed together, and therefore it's not a problem. The same will also go to Velcro. There's not a problem to connect a hood to a coat through Velcro or any other thing through Velcro. So therefore, putting in a lining into a coat, for instance a winter coat, and putting in a lining is not a problem, even if you put it in and it will stay the whole winter, because the essence that it's only a zipper or Velcro shows that it's not something which is sewed together. It's not called tfir. This is how Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach paskens in Shmini Shabbos Kelechuse Peirik Tes Vov Ha'ore Reish Lamed Beis, and Harav Eliyashev in Kovetz Ara Shabbos Gilyan Lamed Beis Osi Umedid Aleph. But Harav Ozner in Shal Shivas Shayvet Alayvi Chayle Gimel Simoni in Aleph holds that even a zipper, if it is zippered in for a very long time, it might be a chashash of tfira. So therefore, regarding putting in a lining in a coat, it is kedai leketchila, you should put it in during the weekdays and not on Shabbos, if it is made to stay for the whole winter. And if you forgot to put it in the weekdays and you want to put it in on Shabbos, so Haraforkash Shabbos Kalocha Perik Chov Zayin Umat Kif Paidalat Paskins that you should take it out during the winter a couple of times in order to be choishish for Avozner, that if it is in for a very long time, it might be a chashash of tfira. So again, if it's possible to do it in the weekdays, that's the best thing. If it's not possible, and you only saw on Shabbos that the lining is not in, then you could put it in on Shabbos, and try if you could take it out once or twice during the winter, in order to be choishish for Shittas HaRavos and Shevet Alayvi. But Reb Shlomo Zalman and other poskim hold that even if you put it in for the whole winter, it's still not considered tfira, because the essence of a zipper means it is a thing which is made to put in and take out. Question. Can a ger tzedek say Kadish Yosam on his parents, the goyim? And number two, can a ger tzedek say Kadish Yosam if his biological goyish parents are still alive? Because we know a person which has his parents still alive doesn't say Kadish Yosam. Could a ger tzedek say Kadish Yosam? And the answer to both questions is a ger tzedek, once he is getting into Klal Yisrael, he finishes his gairis according to halacha, is ger shen is gair kekot shenoiledum. Is like a newborn child. He has no connection to his biological parents. And therefore, yes, he could say Kadish Yosem for anyone else, even if his parents are still alive. And no, you don't say Kaddish on your non-Jewish parents, since you have no connection to them anymore and they're non-Jews. And even if they were Magayed themselves, you and your parents had no connections, so you don't say Kaddish on them. But if he wants to say Kaddish on someone else, even if parents are still alive, he could say Kaddish because he has no connections to his biological parents. Question. We like to put in hard-boiled egg in the cholent and eat it Shabbos in the morning. Can we take it out from the cholent Shabbos in the morning and dip it into a cup of cold water in order to cool it off? And if we cannot, can we rinse it off with cold water? A very good question. The Alter Rebbe writes in She'or, Simashi Yitches, Sof Siv Chof, it's not permitted to take a piece of meat which is hot, Yatsoldas boy, and to put it into a liquid which is cold. Because although you could mix together hot water and cold water, and we don't say there's a problem of bishul, the cold water does not get nisbashel, cooked through the hot water, but since this is a dover gish, it's a solid piece of meat, and it's yatsoldas boy, where you put it into a glass or a plate which has liquid, we say that till the water cools off the solid meat, a tiny drop of the water gets cooked, and therefore it is bishul. So therefore, this is basically a mugen avrom. Mugen avrom says it, the Alter Rebbe paskens it la halacha. And therefore, you cannot take a hot boiling egg which is just out from the cholent and dip it into a cup which has cold water, because till the egg will become cold, a drop of water would be in its bashel, will be cooked, and that's osir. The same will also go, you cannot take out a hot piece of potato and put it into cold borscht or into cold oil, because a tiny drop of the liquid will get cooked till it has the koyach to cool off the potato. So you cannot dip it into a cup of hot water. Now the second question is, can you rinse it off with cold water? And for that, the answer is yes, you could. Because since the water keeps on running constantly, so this half a second which the cold water is connected, touches the hot egg, we say in this second it doesn't get cooked. When you put in an egg in water, it has time to cook the water, and therefore it's osir. But once you rinse it off with cold water from the sink, it is not a problem, because it's a very tiny second that this water touches the egg, and therefore it is not a problem to rinse it off with cold water. And this is how it's passed in the Shmir Shabbos Kechusa Perik Aleph Sif Samach Zayin, and the Moira Shabbos Chaylik Aleph Simavuv, and Shabbos Kehalucha Perik Yid Bais Sif Tezvuv and Sif Tezayin. Now there are some poskim which will say that you could put it in also in a cup of hot water, but as I mentioned before, the Mugen Avrom says you cannot do that, and the Alter Rebbe paskens like that, and we as Chassidei Chabad, which go according to the Alter Rebbe, could not put in a egg or a potato in a cold liquid. Question. Is it okay for one to have a variety of mezuzahs with different scripts, like Sfardi, Ari, or Alter Rebbe scripts in one house? Now the Shara Tshiva, Simel Amadvuv Sifkun Aleph, brings down a machloikas if one type of script passes the other type of script. That means if the Alter Rebbe's script passes the Arizal or passes the Bes Yosef or not. He brings down from the Birkei Yosef B'Shem the Maram Chaviv Maram Alka that there is possible that one script passes the other script, but a whole bunch of other achronim disagree with them and hold that's not a problem, and it's brought down in Mugen Geboirim Simala Madvuf Sifkot Beis, and also in Shal Shivas Marsham Chaylik Baisim and Kiv Chuf. And Minketcheruf and Aschayim has a whole shmiz that basically it's not necessary that one script passes the other. But since we have poskim which say it is a problem, so therefore the skumas of poskim is that whenever it is in one Sefer Torah, for instance, that means some Yiriyas in the Sefer Torah will be Arizal, some will be Sfardi, some will be the Alter Rebbe, it is a problem, and therefore you should not do it, because since there are poskim which say one passes the other one, when it's in one Sefer Torah which is started the Sasra, so you should not do it. But that's only if it's in a way that it's in one Sefer Torah. But when it is separate mezuzahs, separate doors, it is not a problem to have one door should have a mezuzah according to the Bes Yosef, and one door according to Arizal, and one door according to the Alter Rebbe. Since every door in every mezuzah is a separate mitzvah, so it's not a problem. And this is how it's paskent in Baras Yecheskel, page 8. Question: is the Alter Rebbe script preferred? And the answer is yes, of course. If it is written according to halacha, of course the Alter Rebbe's ksav is preferred. But we have to make sure it's written according to the halacha, because there are some soifrim which write according to the Alter Rebbe, and it is problematic halachically, because it is some letters of the Alter Rebbe is quite difficult to make, and if you don't make it correctly, it can have a problem halacha. So therefore, if you have a sofer which writes the Alter Rebbe's kesaf perfect and it's 100% according to halacha, yes, it's preferred that we should go according to the Alter Rebbe's kesaf. Question: can I make havdalah on Shabbos before I daven Ma'ariv? Yes, you could do that. The Alter Rebbe writes in Shechan Simar Resh Tzadik Gimel Sif Aleph, quote, Nahagim, the minig is that we delay davening Ma'ariv at Shabbos because we want to be moisev michol ala kodesh. We want to bring in and have Shabbos should be extended into the weekdays. So therefore we push off a little bit to daven Ma'ariv on Shabbos to bring in some more minutes of the weekdays into Shabbos. But Alter Rebbe finishes that right when you see Gimel Kechuvim Ritzufim, right when you see 3 stars which is right next to each other, which means it is night, a person is permitted to make Havdalah and make Amalacha even though he did not daven Ma'ariv. The same does he write in Simon Rash Tzadik Dalat Sif Beis, that a person which makes Havdalah on a kois before Tfilas Ma'ariv still has to say Havdalah when he davens afterwards Ma'ariv. He still has to say Atochoin Antoni. So we see that Alter Rebbe writes in 2 places that you could make Havdalah on a kois before you daven Ma'ariv on Motzei Shabbos. Question: I was by a wedding and I saw that the witness for the Kedushin was second cousin of 2 second cousin, through wife or edus. Is that okay, or it's possible and you have to make the kedushin again? So the question is, if two second cousins through marriage are possible for being edus, for kedushin, for a ksuba, etc. In she'horio choishe mishpat simul amud gimel sif beis, the Machaber writes, these are the people which are possible edus. Brothers, that it's called rishon barishon. Two brothers, it's called rishon barishon. They're possible for edus. Their children, which means first cousins, apostle edus, and they're called sheni b'sheni. Sheni b'sheni means second to second. Sheni b'sheni is apostle edus. Their children, that means the grandchildren of the brothers, that means second cousin, which is called shlishi b'shlishi, they are not apostle for edus. So the Machaber paskins, sheni b'sheni, that means first cousins, apostle edus. First, once removed, is already kosher edus. And of course, second cousins are kosher edus. And this is no difference if it's blood second cousin or through marriage. Marriage makes a person the same as a blood cousin. For instance, a person is a first cousin through marriage, is apostle edus. So, a cousin, a relative through marriage is still considered a relative and it's apostle edus. But that's only if it is brother-in-laws, first cousins. Second cousins, as by your case, it is kosher la'edus by kiddushin. By a get, we are machmer to passel shlishi b'shlishi and even revi b'revi. That means even the third cousins, we are still machmer by a get, shouldn't be edus. After third cousins, we are mekel. But even the third cousin, we passel by a get. But by kiddushin, we don't passel. But even though we don't passel second cousins by a chasana, by kiddushin, the Nachlas Shiva writes that leketchila, the minig is that you don't take cousins, even shlishi b'shlishi, that means even second cousins, we don't take to be edus for a chasana. So to answer your question, leketchila, we don't take second cousin to be edus. But if it happens to be that second cousins were Adam on a Kedushin or on a Ksuba, it is kosher with the Evet, and you don't have to make over the Ksuba, and you don't have to make over the Kedushin. Question. I washed milchig dishes with a band-aid on one finger. While I was peeling onions and garlic with a fleshig knife, I realized that I was wearing that same band-aid. What is the status of the onion and garlic? The answer is no problem. The onion does not get milchiks because it touches a band-aid which was on your hand while washing milchig dishes. But since you cut it with a fleshig knife, the onion or garlic is fleshig. But nothing happened because you washed dishes, even you washed it with hot water and you had on a band-aid. It's not a problem that with the same band-aid you cut an onion with a fleshig knife. But you have to make sure to wash it off just in case some be'em of the milchik stayed somewhere underneath the band-aid and it might, when on, fall on the garlic, so therefore it's kedai to wash it off, but it does not become treif and it does not become milchik, and it stays fleishig since you use the fleishig knife, and it's okay. Question: is it okay to cut onions or garlic with a milchige knife on a fleishige dish? And if you did cut it, is it a problem? Does it get aser or not? Now the Chochmas Odom Klal Chavov Siv Beis writes that if a person cut something which is sharp, he speaks about herring, on a plate, a dish which is aser, treif, the herring becomes aser. Why? Because since you have a knife over here and there is salty, it's sharp, so doichke der sakina, the pushing of the knife together with the sharp thing, takes out the blias from the plate on what you cut it, and therefore it is a problem to eat. And it finishes, although I heard from people they are makel, they are lenient with it, I don't agree with that, and I hold it's a problem. Also the das teure bejanrov in Simon Tzadik Wuf Divera Maschel im Chotach Metzolem speaks about this question. If you could cut with a milchige knife an onion on a fleischige teller, on a fleischige plate, and it brings down that in Sefer Yeshua Psukim Simon Kivchuv Beis holds it's not a problem. Only when you use it in a grinder, etc., but not when you have a knife and the knife cuts it only on the plate. But it finishes idvarv tzorechien. That means I don't understand exactly the Sefer Yeshia, and he doesn't want to be makel like the Sefer Yeshia. And he makes a difference if you cut it strong. That means if the knife went down on the plate strongly or gently, and he says if it went very harsh, then you should be machmar. If you went very gently, you could be meikel. And afterwards it says all of this is only if you used a knife which is fleischig, and the plate was milchig, because since most time when you use a knife which is fleischig, it comes with hot, so therefore it's a problem. But if you use the milchige knife, you could be lenient. So to answer your question, is it okay to cut a onion with a milchige knife on a fleischige plate or vice versa? No, like tchila, you should not do that. You should not cut it. And if you did cut it, if both are ben yoima, you should kasher it, if you can. If you can't kasher it, then you could be mekel. But if you could kasher it, you should kasher it. That's only if it was a ben yoima. But if it wasn't a ben yoima, then you don't have to kasher it, and you could rely on the poskim which say that it is not considered doichke the sakina, and it is not a problem. To sum it up again, lekitchila, it's not kedai. You should not cut a milchige with a milchige knife, a onion or garlic on a fleischig plate or a fleischig cutting board, or vice versa. That means a fleischige knife on a milchige cutting board. If you did it, if it's eine ben yoima, you don't have to do anything about it. If it is ben yoima, or one keli is ben yoima, you should kasher if you can the ben yoima one, and if you cannot kasher it, it's such a keli that you cannot kasher, then you could be lenient and you don't have to kasher it. Thank you for joining us, and please join us again for the next shiur, and send in the questions to inbox@anash.org. Good night and have a wonderful week.